Over now to the White House. President Trump is walking out for a press conference with the Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri. Let's listen in.
Please. I'm very happy to announce that with 0 of the Democrats' votes, the motion to proceed on health care has just passed, and now we move forward towards truly great health care for the American people. We look forward to that. This was a big step. I want to thank Senator John McCain, very brave man. He made a tough trip to get here and vote. So we want to thank Senator McCain and all of the Republicans. We passed it without one Democrat vote. And that's a shame, but that's the way it is. And it's very unfortunate. But I want to congratulate American people because we're going to give you great health care. And we're going to get rid of Obamacare, which should have been, frankly, terminated long ago. It's been a disaster for the American people. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. It is my honor to welcome Prime Minister Saad Hariri of Lebanon to the White House. The Prime Minister and I have just concluded an extensive conversation about the challenges and opportunities facing Lebanon and its neighbors. Lebanon is on the front lines in the fight against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hezbollah. The Lebanese people of all faiths are working together to keep their and you know this, and we've been discussing this at great length, their country safe and prosperous. They love their country, and they're going to keep it safe and prosperous. Mr. Prime Minister, I want to commend you and your people for standing up for humanity in a very troubled part of the world. The ties between our two countries stretch back more than a century. Long, long relationships. In 1866, American missionaries founded the American University of Beirut. Now, more than 150 years later, and with ongoing American support, this university continues to educate generations of leaders in the region. Today, our two countries seek to strengthen our relationship in many ways, including the pursuit of stability, mutual prosperity, and peace. What the Lebanese armed forces have accomplished in recent years is very impressive. In 2014, when ISIS tried to invade northern Lebanon, the Lebanese army beat them back. Since that time, the Lebanese army has been fighting continually to guard Lebanon's border and prevent ISIS and other terrorists, of which there are many, from gaining a foothold inside their country. The United States military has been proud to help in that fight and will continue to do so. America's assistance can help ensure that the Lebanese army is the only defender Lebanon needs. It's a very effective fighting force. Threats to the Lebanese people come from inside as well. Hezbollah is a menace to the Lebanese state, the Lebanese people, and the entire region. The group continues to increase its military arsenal, which threatens to start yet another conflict with Israel, constantly fighting them back. With the support of Iran, the organization is also fueling humanitarian catastrophe in Syria. Hezbollah likes to portray itself as a defender of Lebanese interests, but it's very clear that its true interests are those of itself and its sponsor, Iran. I have repeatedly emphasized that Syria's neighbors in the Middle East must take responsibility for helping Syrian refugees until they can return home and rebuild their country. The Lebanese people have led the way, accepting more Syrian refugees per capita than any other nation. It's not even close. I want to thank the Prime Minister and the Lebanese people for giving shelter to those victimized by ISIS, the Assad regime, and their supporters and sponsors. and pledge our continued support to Lebanon. Since the start of the Syrian crisis, the United States has helped Lebanon support Syrian refugees with clean water, food, shelter, and health care. Our approach, supporting the humanitarian needs of displaced Syrian citizens as close to their home country as possible, is the best way to help most people. America is proud to stand with those who have the courage to stand up to terrorism and take responsibility for affairs in their own region. The reliance and resilience of the Lebanese people in the face of war and terror is extraordinary. We honor the citizens of Lebanon who are working to secure a future of peace, stability, and prosperity for their children. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm grateful that you're here today. It's a big day in our country because of the vote that you just heard about. We stood and watched the results on television before coming out, and you found it very interesting, I hope.
Yes, I did.
And very important. I look forward to working with you to strengthen our partnership and the enduring friendship between the American and Lebanese peoples. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I had the honor and the pleasure to hold a very good meeting with President Trump. I appreciate his leadership and the United States leadership in the world today. We discussed the situation in our region and the efforts we in Lebanon are making to safeguard our political and economic stability while combating terrorism. I thank President Trump for his support to our army and security agencies, as well as his support to UNIFIL maintaining peace and stability along our southern border, where our government is committed to the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, as well as all resolutions. We also discussed the pressures Lebanon is facing as a result of 1.5 million Syrian displaced in our country. I outlined to President Trump my government vision for dealing with this crisis with the support of the international community. We also discussed economic prospects in Lebanon.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
Good afternoon. We are coming on the air right now because President Trump is in the Rose Garden at the White House. You see him there with the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Saad Hariri. A day that began for the president with another attack on his attorney general. Early morning tweets, the latest in a series of tweets where the president called his attorney general weak. The president has also said that the attorney general has been unfair to him. Just moments ago, he said he's disappointed in the attorney general. It is unprecedented. The president's certain to get questions on that. The questions are now beginning in the Rose Garden. Let's go there.
Thank you.
Hello, Margaret.
Hi, Mr. President. Mr. Prime Minister, I'll have a question for you also in just a second, if you'll bear with me. You spoke earlier today in the Wall Street Journal. We've all seen those comments, but I think everybody here probably is hoping that you could talk a little bit more about this. You have called your Attorney General beleaguered. You've criticized his decision to recuse himself on the Russia matters. And your kind of catchphrase or motto before the White House was "you're fired." So I'm wondering if you would talk to us a little bit about whether you've lost confidence in Jeff Sessions, whether you want him to resign on his own, whether you're prepared to fire him if he doesn't, and why you're sort of letting him twist in the wind rather than just making the call for him. Thank you.
Well, I don't think I am doing that, but I am disappointed in the Attorney General. He should not have recused himself almost immediately after he took office. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me prior to taking office, and I would have quite simply picked somebody else. So I think that's a bad thing, not for the president, but for the presidency. I think it's unfair to the presidency, and that's the way I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, Could you tell us what you think about the Saudi-led blockade of Qatar? This is something that has been of great concern to the U.S. also in terms of resolving. Do you think that Qatar is doing enough on terror? And if so, would you like to see President Trump increase the pressure on the Saudi coalition to ease its blockade? And Mr. President, if you would give us any more of your thinking on going forward the path with Attorney General Sessions and maybe your timeline for making a decision, that would be great. Thank you.
You don't give up. That's okay.
Thank you. I think there is an effort by the Kuwaitis. They're leading this effort. I think they made some progress. We believe that dialogue is the best way in improving this relationship between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I believe that maybe the United States also could help in this in solving this issue in the Gulf. Denise.
I have one question for the President and also for Prime Minister. Congress introduced additional sanctions against Hezbollah last week. What is your position towards these sanctions and on the role of Hezbollah is playing in the region and Syria?
I'll be making my position very clear over the next 24 hours. We're going to see what is exactly taking place. I have meetings with some of my very expert military representatives and others, so I'll be making that decision very shortly. Okay?
And about his role in Syria and the region?
Whose role?
Hezbollah's role.
I'll be talking about that tomorrow.
Prime Minister, ماذا سترد الحكومة اللبنانية على طلب الكونغرس الأمريكي بشأن العقوبات على حزب الله؟
نحن لطالما تعاوننا بأي موضوع من الفرض علينا عقوبات أو على البنوك اللبنانية وتعاون بين المصرف لبنان وهذه العقوبات. نحن حنستكمل يعني هذه التعاون. نحن عم نقوم باتصالات بالكونغرس كمان أيضا. هيكون عندي عدة جولات بالكونغرس لحتى نقدر نوصل إلى تفاهم بالنسبة
Prime Minister Hariri, they're taking the questions. I want to go quickly to our Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas, on the President's
Blake
answer.
Berman.
Actually, let's listen in one more time for the President.
Hello, Blake.
President Trump, hello, thank you. Indulge us here for a second, just to pick up where Margaret. The American people, I think, would like to know, do you feel that the Attorney General should indeed stay in? Should he resign? Do you intend on why should he remain as the Attorney General? And secondly, on a separate topic, with the healthcare vote that just came about, still a long ways to go. At what point do you feel that Republicans, if they can't get something done, should just say, you know what, we gave it a go, let's move on to tax reform instead? Thank you.
I want the Attorney General to be much tougher on the leaks from intelligence agencies, which are leaking like rarely have they ever leaked before at a very important level. These are intelligence agencies. We cannot have that happen. You know many of my views in addition to that, but I think that's one of the very important things that they have to get on with. I told you before, I'm very disappointed with the Attorney General, but we will see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell. On health care, I'm extremely happy that we got this vote. This is, they say, if you look historically, this is the tough vote to get. Now we're all going to sit together and we're going to try and come up with something that's really spectacular. We have a lot of options and a lot of great options. And the Republican senators really went out there. It's not easy when you have 52 senators and you have a block of 48 voting against you. No matter what it is, no matter how good it sounds, it's very hard to get the kind of numbers that we got. We ended up with 51 votes, 51 to whatever. I don't know what it is. Yeah, 51 to 50. So we had two Republicans that went against us, which is very sad, I think. It's very, very sad for them. But I'm very, very happy with the result. I believe now we will, over the next week or two, come up with a plan that's going to be really, really wonderful for the American people. Obamacare is a disaster. It's failing on every front. It's too expensive. It gives horrible coverage. It was gotten by a lie 28 times. It was a lie. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your plan, all lies. And the people are sick of it. And we're going to come up with a great health care that satisfies the needs of the people that we serve, which is the people of the United States. I will say, and I said it right at the beginning, health care is always difficult because you have to weed a very, very narrow path, like a quarter of an inch wide, right down the middle. And if you go a little bit too far right, you lose 3 people on the left. And if you go a little bit too far left, you lose 5 people on the right. It is a very, very complex and difficult task. But it's something I actually know quite a bit about. I want to just thank some of the Republican senators who were really fantastic in getting us here, particularly John McCain for making the trip. But I think you're going to have a great health care. This is the beginning of the end for the disaster known as Obamacare. Thank you very much.
And Mr. President.
Mr. President, how can the United States help Lebanon cope with the massive number of refugees, of Syrian refugees? And is there a way you can help facilitate the refugees' return to their home country?
Well, we are helping. And one of the things that we have made tremendous strides at is getting rid of ISIS. We have generals that don't like to talk, they like to do. And we were with General Mattis last night, and the success they've had against ISIS is extraordinary. We've made more progress in the last 4 or 5 months than previous, really, I could say the previous administration made in 8 years. And then we have to see what we have to see. But I will tell you, ISIS in Syria, ISIS in Iraq, ISIS in other locations, we have made tremendous strides. Our military is an incredible fighting force. And as you know, I let the commanders on the ground do what they had to do. Before, they used to have to call in this beautiful house and speak to people that didn't know what was happening, where they were, what locations, practically probably never heard of the countries they were talking about or the towns. I let the generals do what they had to do. And we have made tremendous plans. We were discussing it just before. We have made tremendous gains with respect to ISIS in Syria, Iraq, and other places.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Rais.
Assad? I'm not a fan of Assad. Okay? He will tell you that because we hit 58 out of 58. Or you could even say 59 out of 59 when we launched the Tomahawk missiles. No, I am not a fan of Assad. I certainly think that what he's done to that country and to humanity is horrible. So I have been saying that for a long time. I am not somebody that will stand by and let him get away with what he tried to do. And he did it a number of times when President Obama drew the red line in the sand. And then he should have crossed that red line because some horrible acts against humanity took place, including gas and the killing through gases. That was a bad day for this country. And I'd go a step further that had President Obama gone across that line and done what he should have done, I don't believe you'd have Russia, and I don't believe you'd have Iran to anywhere near the extent, and maybe not at all, in Syria today. Okay? Thank you very much.
دولة رئيس السؤال لك كمان حكي كثير عن خفض الميزانية.
As the Prime Minister speaks, I want to bring in our senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas for those words there from the President on Attorney General Sessions. The President will not answer the question whether he's going to fire or wants General Sessions to resign. Says we're going to see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell. But no vote of confidence there from the President. He said he's disappointed in the Attorney General, says he wants the Attorney General to be tougher on leaks, says the Attorney General should not have recused himself. The question is, what does the Attorney General do now?
George, a lot of people at the Justice Department were waiting for this press conference to see if there would be any cooling off in regard to Attorney General Sessions. They did not get that. You saw the president continue to say that he's frustrated with the Attorney General, didn't say that he is going to fire him immediately, but General Sessions is sitting over at the Justice Department not knowing his fate. Now, so far, our sources are suggesting that he does not have any imminent plans to quit, but clearly the pressure is on George in a way that we haven't seen in perhaps in recent memory.
We've never seen anything like this before. That is certain. We've never seen a president take on his own attorney general in such a public way. I want to go to John Carl in the Rose Garden now as the president goes back into the Oval Office. John, the president added a new twist here, saying that the attorney general has not been unfair to the president. He's been unfair to the presidency. But this whole issue of recusals, the president appears to be angry because the attorney general isn't in a position now to protect the president from the Russia investigation.
That's precisely right. He did mention a couple of other issues, George, including the leaks. He doesn't think that the attorney general has been aggressive enough in cracking down on leaks of classified information in this administration. But clearly, the thing that has him most upset with the attorney general, the thing that has had him upset for months with the attorney general, is the fact that he recused himself from that Russia investigation, and that led directly to the decision by the deputy attorney general to appoint a special counsel to investigate. That's what has him upset. It was just remarkable to hear the president asked directly on follow-up, will you fire the attorney general, and for him to answer, time will tell. It remains to be seen.
Well, and then, one of the questions there is, does the president want to wait until the Senate is in recess so he can get a recess appointment and appoint someone who won't need to be confirmed by the Senate, someone who will take control of the Russia investigation?
George, it is very hard to do that now. The Senate tends to stay actually technically in session even when they're in recess by gaveling in every 3 days, so there is no recess of 3 days or more, making it impossible to make a recess appointment. The Democrats simply would not agree to a motion to adjourn allowing a recess appointment. So I don't think that will be an option for the president.
Okay, John Carl, thanks very much. As the president noted there, just moments before he took the podium, the Senate did pass that bill to begin debate on the repeal of Obamacare. One of the deciding votes, Senator John McCain, who came to the floor to a standing ovation on the floor then and voted. You saw him there. He also hugged both the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, and the Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, as well, right after that as well. And then after Senator McCain voted, he gave a bracing speech where he said that serving in the Senate has been the greatest privilege of his life, but the Senate is not living up to the greatness that it is supposed to live up to right now. It says it's more partisan, more tribal than ever before, and then ended with a clear warning for the president and his colleagues.
We're getting nothing done, my friends. We're getting nothing done. I voted for the motion to proceed to allow debate to continue and amendments to be offered. I will not vote for this bill as it is today. It's a shell of a bill right now. We all know that.
President congratulated Senator John McCain for giving him that key vote. May not have heard the whole speech or chose to ignore those final words there from Senator John McCain. I want to bring in our congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, for more on that. The message there from John McCain, very, very clear. He says we have to work in a bipartisan way. We have to find some way to get compromise. And if you add his vote to the two senators who voted no on this motion to go to debate, that means that right now there is nothing on the Senate floor that can get a majority of votes.
Yeah, George, and this speech was classic John McCain. He did not hold anything back, making that emotional return here to Capitol Hill. The first time we've seen him since he was diagnosed less than a week ago with brain cancer, coming back to vote yes on this motion to move forward, and then laying in to Republican leaders, laying into leaders in the Senate, making very clear that, as he says, things have to change, that he's calling for a return back to what he called the old way of legislating. And just a moment ago, I asked Leader Mitch McConnell if he plans to heed his advice to reach across the aisle, work with Democrats, and he noted, look, healthcare reform is difficult, and if they think the vote here today was tough to get, this is just a procedural vote. What comes next is really the hard part. Now they have to find a way to actually fulfill their signature promise to overhaul Obamacare. And as you mentioned, the options on the table, a repeal and replace or just a straight repeal, everything that they've considered so far falls short of the votes they need to get it done.
As you said, Mary Bruce, that was classic John McCain. He said to his colleagues, to hell with the loudmouths on internet, radio, and TV. Our incapacity is their livelihood. There will be much more tonight on World News Tonight with David Muir. You can get the latest breaking news anytime by downloading the ABC News app. Have a good afternoon.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Hi, everybody. Continuing coverage here now of the president's remarks in the Rose Garden there in a joint press conference, with the Prime Minister of Lebanon. And also, of course, big news today. The Republicans have managed to get the votes they need to push forward their health care reform bill to the next stage. Let's break it all down right now. Starting with Mary Alice Parks down on Capitol Hill, was keeping an eye on both those events for us. Mary Alice, I got to ask you about the big news coming out of President Trump's press conference there. This is something he was tweeting about earlier today. He has tweeted about before. It is his increasingly deteriorating relationship with his own attorney general.
It is unbelievable. Multiple days now in a row, the president saying on Twitter that he basically does not like what his attorney general is doing. He won't go as far as to say whether he should step down, but he's been essentially ridiculing him, saying that he's not doing his job well, saying in roundabout ways that he doesn't like how he's serving him. So the questions from reporters made sense. Well, if you're so unhappy, are you going to fire him? Should he resign? The president unwilling to go that next step, which leaves a lot of questions still in the air. How in the world can this government function if the president does not have faith in his own attorney general, and his attorney general is not sure how to move forward?
Mary Alice, we saw reporters follow up on that again and again and again. We didn't quite get an answer there, but let's bring in our colleague, ABC's Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas, for more on this. Pierre, we've heard the president call his attorney general, Jeff Sessions, beleaguered. He's called him weak. He said he was very disappointed in him, very pointedly in that press conference. How are the president's remarks going over with the Department of Justice right now?
Well, obviously there's concern. The Attorney General is the leader of the Justice Department, and I think one of the big concerns beyond the criticism is whether the department can continue to be an independent force in regard to criminal and national security investigations. There has traditionally been a red line, whereas the White House and the president did not micromanage or control criminal investigations. And there are a lot of people at the Justice Department who are wondering if the president is pushing and putting pressure on the Justice Department, if you will, to do his bidding in regard to the Russia investigation. That's the outstanding question. As far as Senator Sessions, now Attorney General Sessions, is concerned, what does he do? Does he quit on his own, or does he wait to be fired? Or can he somehow soothe the president's concerns to the point where the president will stop belittling him every day online, and today in front of a national audience on television?
Pierre, put this into context for us a little bit if you can, because I'm not sure how unprecedented this is, but the president very pointedly calling out some things that he would like to see the Attorney General do. He has tweeted about it. He mentioned it in the press conference. He said the Attorney General should be tougher on leaks that he thinks are coming out of the intelligence agencies. He's called out again and again on Twitter that he thinks the Attorney General should do more about the Clinton email server investigation. Is that normal cause of business?
Let me be precise. You've had presidents before talk about the need to investigate and prosecute leakers. So that in and of itself is not unusual. We saw President Obama take on a very aggressive stance in regard to leaks. The difference here is in terms of calling for an investigation of his political opponent, Hillary Clinton, who he defeated in last year's election. Raising questions about the fairness of the Russia investigation, which is looking at whether members of his campaign team or associates colluded with Russians, attempting to affect that in the eyes of some. That is what is different here, and some people say very concerning.
Thank you, Pierre Thomas, our Chief Justice Correspondent. Let's head over now to Capitol Hill. The other big news of the day, of course, we're joined by Mary Bruce, ABC's Congressional Correspondent. Mary, we heard the president weigh in on it as well, say he was very happy to see that vote go through. So the big question is now, what's next? Where do they go from here?
Well, that is the big question, and I just have to tell you, Amna, it has been a roller coaster afternoon up here that culminated in that emotional return of Senator John McCain, making his first appearance back here on the Hill since being diagnosed with brain cancer less than a week ago. He decided to return to Washington to help cast that vote, his yes vote, on a motion to proceed to begin debate on health reform. He was greeted back here with a lot of hugs and a big standing ovation, gave cameras a bit of a thumbs up as he walked in, and he voted yes on this motion to proceed, and then he went on to deliver a blistering classic John McCain speech, laying in to the process that has led them here today, saying they have to return to the old style of legislating, saying there needs to be a return to bipartisanship, because while he voted yes on this motion to begin debate today, he made clear he still does not support the bill. And if you look at just how difficult it was to get to this point today, now consider what comes next. Now's the real hard part. They have to now come up, Senate Republicans, with some way to make good on this promise to the American people to overhaul Obamacare. And the options that are on the table right now, do they repeal and replace? We've seen the bill that they've been considering for weeks. Do they go ahead with just a straight repeal bill? Everything that's been considered so far simply doesn't have enough votes to get over the finish line.
All right, Mary Bruce live for us on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Mary. And let's head over now to the White House. Jordan Phelps joins us live there. Jordan, we saw the president there speaking very plainly about his views on a whole host of topics there, namely on his views as own attorney general, and of course the things that he thinks he should be doing. What are we hearing from the White House, if anything, that feeds into a little bit more of what we think the next steps might be? And we know this relationship has been getting worse for a while now. What are we hearing from them?
Yeah, Amna, it sure has been getting worse. And we do know that Jeff Sessions actually offered to resign from his post as Attorney General back when the president was first infuriated over the fact that he recused himself. The president did not accept that offer to resign at the time, but now the president is doing everything but explicitly telling Jeff Sessions to resign. The president making it clear that he would like to see his Attorney General go, but stopping short of actually saying those precise words. We have heard from the White House today, from the new communications director, in fact, Anthony Scaramucci, saying that we should have a resolution shortly. He's likened the relationship between President Trump and his Attorney General as a married couple and a divorce. He says they either have to reconcile or separate. And right now, the White House isn't able to say whether there will be some sort of reconciliation, but the indication is that we should be hearing soon.
Well, it's strong indications coming from the president, too. For anyone who missed that moment, here is what President Trump had to say just moments ago about his Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. Take a listen.
I want the Attorney General to be much tougher on the leaks from intelligence agencies, which are leaking like rarely have they ever leaked before at a very important level. These are intelligence agencies. We cannot have that happen. You know many of my views in addition to that, but I think that's one of the very important things that they have to get on with. I told you before, I'm very disappointed with the Attorney General, but we will see what happens. Time will tell. Time will tell. I don't think I am doing that, but I am disappointed in the Attorney General. He should not have recused himself almost immediately after he took office. And if he was going to recuse himself, he should have told me prior to taking office, and I would have quite simply picked somebody else. So I think that's a bad thing, not for the president, but for the presidency. I think it's unfair to the presidency, and that's the way I feel.
There you have a public display of the disappointment there from the president about his own Attorney General. But Jordan Phelps, while I have you at the White House, you mentioned the new Director of Communications, Anthony Scaramucci. The president had mentioned leaks as something that he wants the Attorney General to go after, to be more tough on, as he said. This is something Mr. Scaramucci has weighed in on recently as well, isn't it?
He sure has. He's told us he will fire everybody within the comm shop if he has to. The president has given him that authority if it means stopping the leaks. We already saw one resignation today from an assistant press secretary, Michael Short. He stepped down from his post. That was a story that first broke in Politico, and Scaramucci pointed to that story, the fact that this story had leaked before he had an opportunity to talk to Michael Short as an example of why he wants to and plans to crack down on the leaks now, besides the Michael Short resignation that was surely prompted by a conversation with Scaramucci. We know that the president has made an offer of quote-unquote amnesty to the rest of his staff, saying that they have an opportunity, a clean slate, to begin again with him. But if he sees evidence of leaking, he will crack down, and he'll crack down hard.
And Jordan, one last thing before I let you go. The biggest story with potentially the biggest impact on most Americans, of course, the decision to move forward, the votes now to move forward with the GOP's health care reform bill, at least to debate it, try to work it into some workable fashion now. You have an unpopular president, a very unpopular Republican Congress, and an unpopular bill now. Do we know how the White House plans to message this moving forward? Do they want to continue to see the president involved in whatever this health care reform effort turns out to be?
Yeah, Amna, that's a question we posed to the White House time and again. Why isn't the president out there using his bully pulpit to campaign for this issue? The president mostly has kept a low profile up to now, and we have seen no indication that the president will take a more public role. Now, of course, we do have a new communications director. We've already seen some subtle changes here with how the White House is getting its message out. Perhaps we might see the president take a more active role moving forward, but for now, the vice president has been the real advocator, taking that public role, going up to Capitol Hill on a weekly basis to push legislators, and we expect that the vice president will continue to take a leading role on this. But the president has made it clear, and he did in his remarks last night, that he expects results. He actually jokingly threatened Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, saying he should maybe fear for his job if this didn't get through. So the president is using his bully pulpit, at least against his own cabinet and against Republicans, to make sure this moves forward. We know that he wants to see repeal and replace, but he's also made clear that he'll settle for just repeal if that's all they can get.
A lot of job uncertainty going around then, it seems. Jordan Phelps,
indeed,
live for us at the White House. Thanks, Jordan. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
And thanks to all of you for watching as well. Remember, you can always go to abcnews.com anytime for continuing coverage of all these stories and many more. For now, I'm Amna Nawaz, and I'll see you back here soon.